Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you stopped by. I'm Aletha of Ribbons and Zippers, and today I'm going to share with you some tips and techniques on how I created the pattern for this gorgeous, beautiful crochet lace halter top dress. This is such a pretty dress. As you can see, it's pleated at the neck and it has a choker collar. I chose to do a high waist because for my figure, I find that that's the most flattering. Notice that the lace has a symmetrical diamond shaped pattern throughout. Now I use that to make these perfect pleats all the way around. The dress is lined with a nice interlock knit that has about 25% stretch and that gives structure to the halter top, and it shapes my body underneath. Okay, so let's get started. To begin, I'm going to show you how I drafted the halter top. I start with my bodice sloper based on my measurements. If you need to know how to draft your own bodice sloper, I show you how in this video. So check that out first if you need to. Okay, so on my bodice sloper, I'm going to start at the apex and first make my bust radius on the front bodice. Now I need to do this in order to remove fullness because I want my halter top to fit snugly. And I am also going to adjust my back sloper. Let's start with the front sloper. The first thing I need is my awl. I also need a pencil and my ruler. This ruler is great because it has these little tiny holes in it at every ½ inch. Now I use my awl to hold the ruler in place at the bust apex. Starting at the neck dart, I make a perfect curve down to my waist dart. Then I start again at the waist dart and back up to my neck dart. And there you have it. Just note that the radius measurements is from the apex to the underbust. Now I want to add my darts and use them to take out the fullness from the bodice and create my contours. Now I'm going to start with my front mid-neck dart. From the apex, I'm going to draw a line. As you can see, I already did, but I'm going to go ahead and retrace my steps. I need to make a mark that is 1/4 of an inch away from the right of my dart line and taper in to the apex and taper to my neckline dart. Now I'm going to come over to my shoulder tip dart, and from my apex to my shoulder tip, I'm going to draw a line. And then I'm going to make a point on my radius that is going to be 1/2 of an inch to the right of my dart. Now this is a little wider than the center neck dart, which was 1/4 of an inch. My shoulder tip dart is going to be 1/2 of an inch on my bust radius. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to taper to the apex and then again to the shoulder tip. Now I need to take in the fabric under my arm so that my halter fits snugly, as I said. In order to do that, I'm going to make a line from my apex to that line. For this dart, my contour is going to be 1/4 of an inch on the armhole, but this time to the left of the dart, and I'm going to draw that line. Now I'm going to work on my center front bust dart. For this contour, I'm going to go all the way around to my center front line, not the radius. So let's make our marks on the center front line. That is going to be 3/4 of an inch. And let's divide that by 2 and make our marks on either side of the bust line. Then draw 2 lines from the apex to those marks. The last contour that I'm going to make is on my waist dart. So we're going to do 3/4 of an inch divided by 2 again. And that's going to be 3/8 of an inch on either side of my dart legs, okay? I'm going to put those marks on the radius. I'm going to taper from my apex to those points, and from those points to my waistline. Now, because this is a halter with the back out, there is not a lot of contouring. But I'm going to show you how to do it just in case you need it. First, you're going to need a horizontal balance line. So I'm going to use my ruler and come down from my center back nape about 4 inches and mark a spot. Then I'm going to square over. Then I'm going to square down so that my line is exactly in the middle of my back dart. Okay, so I came down 4 inches and I squared over. And I squared down to the center of my back dart. Now I divide this line by 2 and get 5 inches. So I come down 2.5 inches and make my contour dart. Now my waist is 38 inches, so the total length should be 19 inches. So as you can see, I added my side seams to make that adjustment. And now I'll just cut off the excess. Next, I'm going to measure out my waistband. The front is going to be 3 inches. I want my back to be lower, so I am going to make that 2 inches. And then I'm going to draw a line to attach it. Okay, so I marked under my bust all the way to my back, and this is going to be my waistband, which I am going to cut out. But before I do, I'm going to close up my darts and determine my armhole. Now before I determine my neckline and my armhole, I'm going to taper in my side seams by 1/2 inch and cut out my waist dot contour. I came down 1 inch and I'm going to cut that off. But before I do, I'm going to mark the width of my halter top and how far I want my armhole to come down and how much coverage that I want on the side. So I want my halter neck to be 5 inches. So I am going to come in 2.5 inches and mark that point. Across my chest, I'm going to measure 7 inches and make sure that I square across and mark that point. And for my armhole, I'm going to extend it down 3 inches and mark that point. Next, I'm going to connect my points and true my armhole. Now I'll cut out my front waistband and taper it in. And next my halter top. Now let's go ahead and work on the back. I want to make sure that I am all lined up on my side seam. And to do that, I'm going to use my ruler and my front halter piece. I'm going to match the points and make a continuous line through to the back. Now all I have to do is cut out my pieces and add my seam allowance. I need to cut out the contours on the back notch before I tape it together. Before I add my seam allowance to my halter top, I want to do a few things. So this is my apex, and we know that we never sew our dart to our apex. So I have to come down 1/2 of an inch. And I also want to give my halter some roundness under the bust. So I'm going to extend my dart legs about 1/4 of an inch, both dart legs, and I will just taper to nothing to both sides and then continue my dart legs. Okay, now that I have added my seam allowance and created the pattern, I use it to create a mock-up, as I always do. You know I always do that. And I need to make an adjustment to my armhole, I found out. It was actually revealing too much bust, at least for my taste. So I added more fabric. And of course, it still is going to come to a point in the back at the center back at the zipper. So this is the pattern for my halter top. Okay, so before I move on, please like and subscribe, and please hit the bell so that you can be reminded of anytime I make these awesome videos. I don't want you to miss a thing. Okay, I've laid my pattern down onto my interlock, and I am using a rotary cutter. Make sure that the blade on the rotary cutter is nice and sharp because you don't want any snags. As I mentioned, this is an interlock knit, not jersey, it's interlock. It has about 25% stretch, so it has a very nice recovery. And I am going to be cutting 2 of each piece of my pattern. Now that I have all of my pieces cut out, I'm going to go to my machine and sew them together. Okay, so I've set my stitch to a stretch stitch. I've set my length to 3.5, and I've set my width to 1.0. And that's going to give me a nice stretch stitch. And I'm using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I've sewn both my front and my back halter. But the waistband on the front is basted because I'm going to remove it later. The back is interfaced with stretch interfacing for knits. I'll put the information for this interfacing in the description below. It gives it body while allowing it to stretch with the fabric. Now I'm going to hand baste these 2 together only at the armhole, wrong side to wrong side. So here I have my halter top hand basted together, and I'm going to set it aside while I work on my slip. I'm going to cut out a short body fitting slip with my skirt block to attach my crochet lace skirt. If you need to know how to draft your own skirt, check out this video. Now I took the waistband off, Remember I said I only basted the waistband and I basted the armhole as well. I did that to make sure that it was exactly the same as the back. Now I'm going to take this over to my dress form and start draping my lace on my halter. I don't want to cut the lace as a pattern because I'm going to do some gathering and pleating at the neck. I just want it to lay over. I don't want it to have any bust darts, just the side seam. I just want it to be a nice, beautiful crochet lace overlay. So I gathered my crochet lace so that it measures 5 inches at the neck. And now I'm just going to spread and drape and spread and drape until I get my desired look. And then I'll cut it out and take it back to the table. Okay, so here's my halter. It looks good. Now I need to cut out my crochet back extension and my crochet waistband. So now I've already attached the crochet back extension and I've understitched my armholes. That's very important. Always remember to understitch. Now I need to reattach my waistband, but I need to attach the crochet lace on top first. But before I do that, I'm going to trim my crochet right here at the bottom so that there's no bulk. Okay, here is my halter. Here's the front and the lining. Let me show you what it looks like on the inside. It's beautifully done. Nice and neat. The seams are matching and everything is straight and even. I love it. Now I have to attach my crochet skirt to my underslip. Okay, so here's my slip. And then I'll attach the top to the skirt, just the front part, not the back. Pleating my skirt was really simple. I just used the diamond pattern that was already in the fabric and I just pleated my skirt all the way around and I came up with this beautiful waterfall pleat. Now my neckband pattern was very simple. I can show you how it's done in this video right here. I just added 4 more inches to the measurement so I can allow for my snaps, and it was very simple and I'm ready to go. Alright everyone, I love this dress. It is coming out quite nicely. I've attached my halter to my skirt and I've hand stitched my zipper very delicately to my dress. It came out very nice. As you can see, my halter comes to a point at the center back still. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit. I've already started right here, you see. I've hand stitched my zipper with a very small back stitch close to the zipper teeth. Now what I've started is a beautiful, neatly done invisible stitch along the zipper tape. And I'm going to go ahead and continue this stitch back up the other side and along the waistband. So it's going to be nice and neat. Okay, so now I finished the bottom of my slip with my serger and I'm using a zigzag stitch to just turn it up and zigzag it. And I get a nice flat hem, and that's it. I don't want to have any bulk. I don't want I don't want it to be turned twice. It's not that type of slip for anything other than what I've done. Okay, so I've set my serger up with 3 threads and 1 needle. So I removed 1 thread and I removed my right needle. Make sure that when you do remove your needle, if you are using a serger, that you tighten the screw, because you don't want it to wobble and come loose while you're sewing. Now this is what my 3 thread looks like. It looks very nice and neat and smooth. Now I'm going to serge the hem of my dress. This is just a sample because I wanted to test it first. Now I'm going to turn it up about 1/2 inch, and then I'll hand stitch a whip stitch all the way around. So this is what it looks like. I think it came out very nice. I think the 3 thread stitch was the perfect choice for this dress. I love it. I really think it came out very nice. I thank you guys for watching, and I really hope that you come back again to learn more tips and techniques of how I sew my special occasion wear.